everybody, Vincent Aiello with Barco Inc. We're back here at the Northern California offices of Barco, and this time we're here with Tim Morin, who is the National Director of Image Processing for Rentex, and we're here to talk about the ImagePRO 4K.
So Vince, one of the things I'd like to ask you about the ImagePRO 4K, one of the reasons we bought a large quantity of ImagePRO 4K was for 4K at 60, plus some of the features like LED setup, plus the 3 programming modes. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the hardware that's different on the IP4K compared to the ImagePRO 2? And is this really the successor for the ImagePRO 2?
Yeah, it certainly is a successor. It builds off of the ImagePRO line, right? You know, where we have the dedicated front panel control, you know, full up-down cross conversion, the whole, you know, signal format conversion, LED wall assistance, the whole deal, right? That you get with ImagePRO, with the original ImagePRO. But the ImagePRO 4K is kind of built on the EventMaster line as opposed to its own entity, right? So you'll notice first off, right off the bat, the back of the ImagePRO 4K, essentially 2 tri-combo cards, tri-combo input, tri-combo output. So you can get that up, down, and cross conversion. Across the back, we have reference generator, right? Okay. So we can output bi-level and tri-level reference. We have Ethernet and power supply, very similar to the way an EX looks, right? Because essentially it's an EX with a front panel operation, right?
And right now these ship with the tri-combo in and tri-combo out. Is there any plans in the future to allow you to use other Gen 2 cards?
Yeah, in the future, we will open it up to where you can, you know, swap these out. Of course, not hot swap, but you can take Generation 2 DisplayPort 1.2 or HDMI 2.0 cards, swap them out, and kind of customize your own ImagePRO experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the other things we noticed when we received ours was the different faceplate. You know, explain a little bit about, you've got the USB, you've got a different knob, different buttons. Can you explain a little bit about the different hardware on the faceplate?
Yeah,
the
sure.
ImagePRO 4K has?
Of course, of course. So across the left here, we have a USB port, so you can do backups, restores, firmware upgrades, kind of all the stuff you know and love from the EventMaster processors. Next to that, we have our multifunction display. So the multifunction display can act as a monitor for both the sources and the outputs, right? Okay. So if you choose a source, it'll monitor the source. If you choose an output, it'll monitor the output. Next to that, we have our cool rotary adjust knob.
Yeah, that was one of the things we noticed is you guys have removed the select button, and actually it's the rotary knob, and you push in the knob to select your menus.
Yeah, exactly. So if we bounce into that, it'll show you to select and spin, select, and then we have the original escape button. So next to the navigational buttons, we have the sources and output buttons. So on the source buttons, we basically use those as mappable buttons for your front panel, right? Okay. So I can map, let's say, logos, mats, still stores, actual physical inputs, sources, and presets to that. I can actually map presets to those buttons. Okay. So, you know, it's fully flexible, very, very similar to the way like a controller would be on an EC30, EC50, EC200, or 210. On the outputs, I can map, you know, physical outputs. I can map, when I set it into matrix mode, which we'll talk about here in a second, I can use those to map my outputs. Now, one of the caveats we like to point out is that if you switch between a live input to another live input, it has to dip to black or it has to be a hard cut because there's no AB bus. There's no mix.
So this would not be a replacement for your PDS?
Correct. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely not a replacement. Absolutely.
So another question I have is the connectors. Mm-hmm. So you've got HDMI 1.2, DisplayPort 1.2, HDMI 2.0, and your 12G.
Yeah.
If I send 4K to all of the inputs, do I have to disable any connector capacity, or is there something new in the ImagePRO 4K that you guys have done? So
in standard program and standard preview, we do this thing called dynamic connector capacity. And what dynamic connector capacity is it robs connector capacity from the other inputs to dedicate towards the one that you want to use quickly and on the fly. So let's say I did bring in all 4K DP 1.2, 4K HDMI 2.0, and then 4 12G SDIs. Well, let's say I want to take HDMI 2.0. Well, what it would do is it would rob connector capacity from the other connectors and dedicate it towards that HDMI 2.0. Super quick, super on the fly, automatically.
But then I'd be able to go back and select that 12G SDI, and the connector capacity would go back to be able to utilize that.
Exactly, exactly. So it essentially eliminates a step of, in Event Master where you had to go down and select each connector and set it to none and then dedicate 4K to another. It takes care of it for you. And remember, that's called dynamic connector capacity. It's only available in standard program and standard preview. Yep.
And can you tell us a little bit about the difference between the modes and the different functions that each mode has?
Yeah, certainly. So 3 modes: standard program, standard preview, matrix mode. So we'll cover standard program. Standard program works just like our original ImagePRO Dual, where you press a button and it'll take the actual input and send it to screen, right? Pretty simple stuff. Now, one of the cool things about standard program mode is that it'll do 2 4K in outs, right? Or sorry, 2 4K outs. So we can take in, say, one input, one source, we should say, and send it to 2 different outputs. And they could be 4K, they could be dual 4K, they could be like 720p.
The outputs are scalable then when you're in standard program mode.
Yes, absolutely. And independent as well. So you can send the same signal out to 2 different places, just like a dual, right? Like an ImagePRO 2 dual. Standard preview acts just a little bit different, as where if we were to set it into standard preview and we selected a source, you would be able to see the source in your multifunction display, verify that it's accurate, and then we hit the take button and that would send it to our outputs.
So the multifunction display would then act pretty much as a preview monitor.
Exactly.
So you would see what's on preview, then you would hit take, and out it goes to program.
Okay. Yep, totally. And then we have matrix mode. So matrix mode's a cool mode that we've enabled that does require Event Master toolset right now. And essentially what that does is that creates a 6 input, 6 output matrix scalable router. So you can take in any HD input and send it out HD output. It's like having 6 ImagePROs in one.
Okay.
But again, that does require Event Master toolset right now. We're working on a front panel operation for that though.
Now, when it's in matrix mode, you can create custom presets that you can then map to the front. Is that correct?
Totally. Yeah. So just like we said before, where we can map the presets to the front, when you're in Event Master toolset, you can create those presets and then just map them right to your source buttons.
I can see a lot of companies using that for 2 screens, 2 DSMs, where you can map it and have different looks with different inputs going to them, and just create your preset, hit one button on the front panel, and hit take, and then you're switching presets.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Now, you did mention that you can do that in the Event Master software. Can I control this with an EC200 or EC210 since it's part of that EM type family?
Yeah, totally. The great thing about Event Master is the ecosystem, right? So if you can control in an Event Master, you can use a controller for it. So EC30 support, EC50 support, 200, 210 support, everything that you've known to grow and love about Event Master is supported on ImagePRO 4K.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one of the key reasons why we did invest heavily into these is for LED configuration and to have it in front of an LED processor at a 4K 60. And I did notice that you guys added an LED setup button here. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Yeah, totally.
So we recognize that a lot of companies out there, a lot of people were putting ImagePROs, pre-scale on a LED wall, or just as a kind of a source switch between an LED wall, or cordoning off AOI for LED wall. And so we said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to add a button to the front that gives you access to all of those controls quickly, right? So if we jump into the LED setup, you'll notice that we have where we can select our aux or select our output. We can do wall scaling AOI. We can do image sizing. And if we dive into image sizing, we can do like a center cut. We can do scaling mode all. We can do custom sizes where we actually, zoom in, zoom out, kind of shift around. We can pan horizontal or shift vertical within that raster, right? So we can, it's essentially all the stuff you use for LED wall dialing in.
Well, I know one of the things that when we got a chance to play around with it that we noticed was in the test pattern generator. So there is, of course, the test pattern generator for circle alignment,
Yeah.
which is what we use for blending multiple projectors or however we're going to do it on show site.
Yeah.
But you have a new LED function inside of that test pattern. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Look, let's take a look at it. So we'll jump into test pattern, and we'll go to type, and then we'll navigate to that circle alignment, like we said. Okay, bust into circle alignment. There we are. And we'll select out of it, and then we'll go down to LED mode. We'll turn LED mode on, and now watch what happens here. LED mode populates, and you see these little bricks, basically, right? These squares. And now this grid is basically a representation of your wall panels in their own specific pixel width and height. So it can dial in our actual grid spacing. So say if I have a wall that's like 168 by 168 or 192 by 192, I would dial that in on my grid spacing, and my actual physical output would represent that. So it's like a dynamic grid.
So these are pixel accurate representations of what the LED tile would be. So as long as I'm making sure pixel for pixel, and I can adjust that in here, then we'll actually have a grid for the wall.
Yeah, exactly. No need for a third-party app that might be accurate if all the moons have aligned. It's that if you hook this up to your processor, and if you know your processor's accurate, this grid spacing will be accurate. So you can identify panels within your LED wall quite quickly and easily.
But I think when we saw this, we just know it's going to cut down on the time for setup for LED walls, and like I said, that's one of the reasons we did invest into it. So. Yeah,
absolutely. So. Speaking of investment, I know you guys bought big and you guys bought early on. Mm-hmm. Are those for rent?
They are for rent, yeah. We have them available at all 10 of our offices throughout the country. So if you need them, just give us a call.
Awesome. All right. Well, if you have any questions, or if anybody else has any questions, feel free to reach us at e2@barco.com, or Facebook page, or barco.com, or
rentex.com.
All right. Well, Tim, thanks for coming out. Thanks for sharing the time. And all right.